Africa is a huge continent. Its land area is 11 million square miles. It's the second largest continent in the world, which means that Africa has huge amounts of natural resources, oil and gas, minerals, or arable lands. Africa has it all. Besides all that, Africa has a very strategic geographic location, connecting the continent of Europe to the rest of Asia through various straits and choke points. But if you look at the map of Africa, you will observe that it's a very diverse continent. It has some of the most arid regions in the largest desert in the world, to vary with areas like the tropical forest. To know how big is Africa, we have to compare it with the rest of the world. The distance between Tangier in Morocco and Cape Town in South Africa is 5,065 miles or 8,150 kilometers. That's approximately the same distance from London to Chengdu in China. So imagine the amount of diversity Africa has, with people living in regions that far away. Africa has a huge population of 1,400,000,000 people. That's still less than India or China's population, but the continent has the highest population growth in the world. In 2050, it will reach 2,500,000,000 people. That represents huge potential for the continent on the global stage, but also some major problem. Most of the countries in Africa are not very stable due to its ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity, which creates conflict between countries or inside the same country because of the borders that were drawn in colonial times. So with all these problems, Africa right now is facing multiple challenges like climate change, overpopulation, and interventions from foreign countries that want more political and economic influence in the continent. So that will bring us to talk about the United States of America. The US has been protecting trade routes, and mainly maritime trade routes, for the last 70 years after the decline of European powers, and that contributed to global stability and interdependence between the majority of countries in the world and the globalization of supply chains. Now, a single product is manufactured and assembled in different countries, starting from the raw materials until the final product. Its parts have been exported and re-exported again through the trade routes that we've been talking about. So, for the United States, it's crucial to protect these routes, and in order to do that, it has to look for local allies to combine efforts and share interests. And when it comes to allies, there is no better than the oldest ally and the first country to recognize the newly independent United States in 1777. In this country, we can find the oldest piece of property owned by the US abroad, and that is the building of the consular representative in Tangier, Morocco, given by the Sultan. Besides the historical relations between the United States and Morocco, let's talk about the current situation. Yes, history is important, but not as the present circumstance. Morocco now is known worldwide to be a tourist destination and an emerging manufacturing hub. But why is it considered by the American establishment to be an important ally in Africa? To answer this question, we have to know what's happening inside Morocco. The country is the most stable in the region, politically, economically, and in terms of demographic. Politically, the country has been ruled by the same political systems for more than 12 centuries after the foundation of the city of Fez as a capital, with various local Moroccan dynasties like the Idrisid, Almoravid, Almohads, the Marinids, the Saudis, and the current dynasty ruling since 1666. So the country enjoyed stability and prosperity throughout its history, which made it a reliable ally. And that means an ally then can be a trusted force for good. And that will take us to talk about the economic stability in Morocco. although Morocco is not rich in natural resources like its neighbors in Africa and in the MENA region, it was able to create a dynamic and diverse economy that is less vulnerable to global raw materials prices. With the exception of oil and gas, the country imports approximately 100% of its energy needs, and that is putting huge pressure on the country's limited budget. But across the other sectors, the country is doing great. For the last decade, the growth in the manufacturing sector was huge. Now Morocco is the biggest producer and exporter of cars in the continent, and the aerospace industry generates over $1.5 billion a year, making it heavily linked to European and North American aerospace industry, and that made Morocco enter in the limited club of countries with this type of industry. In order to make it happen, the country spent dozens of billions of dollars in the last 20 years to improve the infrastructure. It has Tangier Med, the largest container port in the Mediterranean and also in Africa, and it has the only high-speed rail network in Africa with construction plans of 630 miles or over 1,000 kilometers from Tangier to Agadir and from Rabat to Fez. Morocco has the best highway network in Africa. It connects all the major cities. This amount of investments in infrastructure helped the country massively to attract foreign investment and multinationals to open factories and regional offices. And according to various organizations like the World Bank, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, known as OECD, and also the Economist Intelligence Unit in their Global Financial Centers Index, Morocco's Casablanca Finance City is ranked the first in Africa, and in 2019 it was ranked the 21st in the world, only after Paris, Boston, Melbourne, and Montreal. Morocco also is the biggest African investor in West Africa and the second biggest investor in the rest of Africa and the other African regions. In Ethiopia alone, Morocco is investing more than $6.1 billion to establish an integrated fertilizers complex, and another one in Nigeria with a cost of $1.3 billion. These are some numbers of never seen in Africa, and considered big even with international standards. Not only that, Morocco is constructing now the largest project in the history of Africa, with a gas pipeline connecting Nigeria and Morocco with a cost of $25 billion. The pipeline is going to be the longest in the world, with 4,300 miles or 7,000 kilometers, and connecting 12 African countries all the way to Europe, passing by the Strait of Gibraltar. And when we're talking about mega projects in Morocco, the country is not only going to provide Europe with Nigerian gas, but also with solar energy. The United Kingdom and Morocco are constructing now the longest subsea cable in the world to provide the UK with 7% of its electricity needs from solar panels in sunny areas in southern Morocco. The sun relation between the UK and Morocco is not only about electricity, but also about agriculture and food. Morocco now is the largest supplier of fruits and vegetables in the UK, with a share in the British market of 20%. But not only in the UK, it's also a main supplier of the European Union market, and all of that is thanks to the water coming from the melting snow in the Atlas Mountains and also the fertile northwestern plains. Now we talked about the political and economic stability in the country, but what about the demographics? The total population of Morocco is 37 million, and the population growth is actually very healthy, with 1.2% a year. That's way lower than most of African countries, and even lower than some countries like Luxembourg, Australia, Turkey, and Singapore. The country also holds 75% of world's total phosphate reserve, which will make it a more important country in the future on the global stage, regarding that phosphates is a crucial component of fertilizers that are used to grow food and feed the planet. The vast majority of Moroccan phosphates are located in the northern part in Karibga and Yusufia regions near Marrakesh. Morocco is not only important to feed the world, but also for trade routes. The Straits of Gibraltar is located between Spain and Morocco. There is a distance of only 8 miles separating Morocco and Spain. The Strait of Gibraltar is very important to global economy. It's the only natural link between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, providing connection from Western Europe and the east coast of the United States to the Middle East and the rest of Asia. With all these factors, Morocco is considered to be America's most important ally in Africa. While Morocco imports 90% of its defense equipment from the United States, and the two countries hold the annual African Lion exercise in Morocco, which is the biggest in the continent. Morocco and the United States relations have been characterized by respect and friendship, and all the signs tell us that it will last for years to come. You've been watching Atlantic State. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.